Hi guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Ansley. Today we're gonna paint a sea turtle. Let's get started.
For today's little sea turtle drawing and painting, we're gonna start with simple shapes. So all you need is a pencil, and we're gonna do a Sharpie outline afterwards. So make sure you have a Sharpie too. And if you wanna paint with us, make sure you have watercolor paper, some watercolor paints, and jars of water. And we also each have a watercolor brush.
Yeah.
So first we're gonna draw our little sea turtle on, and we're gonna just start with the big shell. We want the shell to be in the middle of our painting, and our turtle his little head's gonna be pointing off this way, and he's gonna have some flappers. His little flappers are gonna be on either side of his shell, and then he'll have two little hind feet here too. And so it's helpful to just visualize where your turtle's gonna go before you even start. So let's start with the oval shape. I'm gonna decide where the tip of his shell is gonna go. So I'm gonna pick somewhere in the corner here, not all the way in the corner. And then the top of the shell, I wanna make sure there's room for his head. So I'm making a little mark for that too. Yeah, just make sure you have enough space for the feet and the head. And try to draw a little bit lighter when you're first sketching so that if you make a mistake, you can erase. So don't press super hard on your paper. Okay, does that make sense? So watch me first. I'm going to do the top side of the oval first. I'm going to start with the little mark I made here and just connect the shape with a curve. All right, so we've got the top part of our shell, and then for the bottom part, we want to make sure it's fairly wide. So I'm going to decide to make the bottom of the shell right about here. And then I'll just draw a curving line connecting all of that. So you've got this kind of lopsided oval, right? Yeah, and that's the shell shape. Now for the head, we're just going to do another oval. It's almost like a sock shape. So I'm going to come up with a curved line first, and that's the top of his head. Is that how big you want it, or you want to make it maybe a little bigger? That's a little better. I like to draw really lightly, especially when we paint over the top of it. Okay, I see you already finished the bottom of your head. I'm going to go ahead and connect mine. It's good to make careful marks when you're first starting. And then for the mouth, a turtle almost has a little beak on his mouth, right? So you want to make it a little bit hooked shape.
Yeah, it's kind of like he has a beak, like a bird.
Nice. Now we're going to do the back flipper. The front flipper, but in the back. And I'm going to start just a little ways away from the head. I'm going to make a little mark for where I'm going to start the flipper. And then the back of the flipper is just going to be pretty close to the back of the shell. So make little tick marks to show where you're going to put them. So you want to make the flipper not nearly as big as the shell. And you're going to do a curved line just like you did with the shell, but not as big as the shell. And then connect the bottom. Very nice. For the other flipper, this one's going to come almost all the way to the bottom of our paper. So draw a little mark for where you want the bottom of the flipper to be, the very point of the flipper. And I would say straight below the head and almost to the bottom of your paper. Good. And then you're going to start right next to the head and draw a curved line coming to the right and then back down to your dot. And then make it fat. So create a little point and then come all the way up back to the shell. Nice. All we have to draw now are the back feet. And for the back feet, they're kind of bumpy like this, and they just look like little socks.
That's kind of funny.
And the one that's further away, you can make a little skinnier. Maybe not quite as big as the one that's closer to us. Remember that when something's close to us, it looks bigger, doesn't it? When something's farther away, it starts to look smaller. That's great. Nice. The next step is to draw the eye. And the eye is just a skinny, pointy oval shape. Two half circles really close together. Now, probably the hardest thing about drawing a sea turtle is getting the shapes inside of the shell to look like sea turtle shell shapes.
Yeah.
So to do that, we're going to start by doing this rim that's around the shell. So I'm going to draw just the same shape as the bottom of the shell first. It's almost like wrapping a ribbon around the shell. Do you see how I just followed along the line of the shell, but made another one inside of it? Now inside of that ribbon that we just drew, we're going to draw little vertical lines.
Kind of like little bumps.
Yeah, you can see how the shell has these little separations like this. And so we're just going to draw almost like the stripes on a snake. Yeah, imagine that you're drawing lines or stripes around a snake. You're doing good, that's it.
But they have little bumps at the tops of the shell.
Yeah, so you're noticing this almost bumpy shape along the shell?
Yeah, that's what I was wanting you to know.
Yes. I didn't draw that on because it was a little more complex, but you can. If you see how the rim of the shell is kind of bumpy or wavy, and it matches those lines that we're drawing. We can make that better with our Sharpie too. Now inside of our turtle shell, I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 separate shapes. Let's do the big shape in the middle first. So we're going to start right about in the middle of the shell, and I'm going to draw a line coming almost all the way up, but not all the way.
Okay.
And then we go left with our line and make it shorter, where it's like we're making a weird rectangle. And now start from that short line that you just made and do a line angling towards the tail, short line, and then you're going to come all the way back down to the shell. That's it, yeah. Now start here at the end of your short line. We're going to do a line going left, another short one, and bring it down to the shell.
I knew we would do these shapes.
And then you're going to come back to this corner and bring it all the way to the shell. The best way to do these shapes is to just look at them one at a time, right? Now let's come back to this part, our biggest line that we drew. We're going to go right and make a short line going up and right a little bit. And then right and down a little bit, like an angle. And bring that line all the way down to the shell. Good. And then we're going to come back to this point that you made. Make a line going right and up a little bit. See how it made a V shape? And bring that all the way to the shell. Good. All right, let's finish up these markings on the shell. So let's start with this one here. Do you see where these 2 points are meeting right there?
Yeah.
Okay, we're just going to wrap that around his back.
It's kind of like, this is kind of like the sea.
Yeah, and then start at this point. You see this one here? And make a line towards the back, but stop a little bit, almost there. And then, watch me. I'm going to connect it like that. So it looks like a sideways house. The house that tipped over on its side. And then this top shape is actually going to be a hexagon. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines. And now you can really just kind of connect these lines to make hexagons all across the top. And then that's it. That's all you have to do. So just make a couple more lines to make a hexagon shape. It's a little tricky, I know. Good. Yeah, the shell is probably the toughest thing. So if you can't get it to look just like that, that's okay. You could just paint the whole shell in if you wanted, and you could add lines later.
I like all of my lines.
So the complicated thing about sea turtles is they have all these markings inside of their shells. But you can simplify that. You don't have to draw every single little shape that you see.
Yeah, that would make it a little bit hard.
Good. Are you ready to paint?
Yes.
All right, so let's set our pencils and Sharpies aside. Grab your paintbrush.
This is my paintbrush. It's all black.
Now, sea turtles come in so many different colors. I've seen green ones and yellow ones and brown ones and purple ones. And so you can paint your sea turtle any color you want.
Like rainbow?
Like rainbow. But before we do the shell, I want to show you a special way to make it really look like a sea turtle. So sea turtles have little dots in their flappers. They have almost mosaic shapes, like little cutouts of little pieces that looks like inside of their flappers. And the rest of the flapper is white. And so to do that, what we're going to do is take a color with lots of juicy paint on it. See, I'm dipping my brush in the paint and getting a really good amount of paint on there. And then you can just paint little dots inside of the flappers. Try not to touch them to each other. They're all kind of separated. You see that? All right, you want to try?
Yeah.
You can make the dots different colors or all the same color like I'm doing. Totally up to you. But this is one way that you can make your sea turtle look really realistic. Nice. So once you're finished with your flappers, then we can paint the shell. Now I like to paint the shell in little sections using wet and wet. Do you remember how to do the wet and wet technique?
Yeah.
So rinse your brush all the way first so you have clean water on your brush. And let me show you how to do one little section on the shell. I'm just going to start with this one right here. Watch, I'm going to paint it in with water. Not too much water, just make it so that it's not puddling but kind of glistening. So just a little bit wet, not too wet. Dry it on your paper towel a little more. Yeah, and soak up a little more of that water with your brush. That's too wet. You don't want it to be a puddle. Even more soaked up. Drop it on your paper towel, soak up some more. Good. That's really good. See how it's just kind of glossy? Not too wet. Oh, mine dried out. Huh. I'm going to wet mine one more time. Okay, so when it's glossy wet, then you just take a color and you can dab it in there and watch the paint blossom. And that's how I'm going to do each little section. If you want to do yours in rainbow, you can. So just glossy wet in one square. That looks beautiful. Perfect blue. While it's still wet, you can add other colors. So if you wanted to dab in a little green in there, you could. Just to make it look even more beautiful. Remember that video we made all about the wet and wet technique?
Yeah.
We're using it right now. So I'm painting a square with water. Making it glossy wet, no puddles. And then I'm dropping in some colors. All right, let's do the water. We're gonna use this turquoise blue, and I'm just gonna get lots of juicy paint on my brush, and I'm just gonna start blotting in and dab it in the water and add that in and try to get right up to the edge of my turtle. And it'll look really, really wet and blotchy. And we're just gonna do our best to paint all the way around the turtle, right? Try not to get on those nice white flappers. So you might have to try to paint really fast so that no hard edges form. Now here's a fun thing you can do. While the paper's still wet, watch me. I'm taking some water on my brush and I'm gonna add blooms. So I'm just dabbing it on the wet paint and it's forming these fun bloom shapes. This only works while your paper is still damp. That's looking very nice. Good fast painting. Hardest part is going all the way around the edge perfectly, isn't it? Now this is still a little bit too wet before you can do the bloom effect. And then once it's kind of starting to dry, that's when you can do the blooms. Otherwise it's just gonna wash out like that. All right, so we're gonna let these dry, and then in a minute we'll show you what it looks like when we take the tape off. Great job on your sea turtle. He looks so good. I especially love how you did the dots on his flappers and the rainbow colors. They blended so beautifully. Are you ready to take the tape off?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
We hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. And please turn on notifications so you don't miss any new videos. Thanks for watching. Bye!